So I can try some sort of compiler. I can try code blocks, which is open source environment, which you can use on Linux and Windows and Mac. So this is very convenient. So we'll just give it a try, and we'll just experiment with abstract keyword. All right, let's go from here. We can say file and create new project, right? So I have to choose a type of project, and my type of project will simply be an empty project, perhaps, right? Okay, so this would be very simple. So I have some sort of location here, which I will capture as 260, and I will say abstract demo, right? Just like that, I guess this looks good. We'll go with these configurations, right? Just go to say view my project manager, go to abstract demo and say add files, right? And I will add what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new text document, and I will say main .cpp, right? And add that main CPP to my project, where I will do all of my experimentation. Say OK. So this becomes part of my sources, and we're going to say include IO stream, so that we can do some testing. I'm just trying to resize this. Okay, so I just resized it, and I will use the standard pause. Seems like an extra brace over there, and we'll just say return 0, right, to exit the program, and we can say hello, and display this display hello to the user. Okay, with new line in the end, so we can essentially test the basic functionality of our system, right? So then we can say debug, and just basically debug the program, so here's the program running. It says hello. Okay, so something like that is easier to see. All right, so the program is running, and what we're going to do next is that we said that we would like to experiment a little bit with the abstract functionality in programming languages. I chose to experiment a little bit with C++, so I can say that, for instance, I can have class person, right? A person, And of course, what I will have is that I will make this class abstract by providing some silly methods such as void print print ID, something like that. Print ID, right? So there's a method in order for me to make it abstract in C++. I have to say this is a virtual method, virtual, right there. Okay, so once it has the virtual method, this should be public, right? This should be made public right here. So if I then if I attempt to say person and try to create this this object in my main function right here, and then even try to say ID, right, and print person print ID, right, call print ID over here and try to print the ID. So if I try building this, so if I save everything and try building this, let's see what compiler says. So I'm getting a lot of errors, but the first error is for okay, so that gives me errors over here, right? So let me just comment this out just to see if I can instantiate this person and if the compiler complains about that. So it says undefined reference to vtable for person. Basically, what it says is that the table of virtual functions is empty, and therefore there is no implementation for print ID. Therefore, cannot instantiate the person. Right. So it's when I double click on this, it basically points to this class and says you can't create it. All right, so I can say class employee publicly derives from person, right? And I can then write the implementation for the person class over here. I'm sorry, the employee class, right? And I can say public, right? And so in public here, I can say virtual, not virtual, but this time a real, concrete, void print ID, right? Print ID, and print ID will be as simple as essentially standard output display the ID, right? And that's pretty much what needs to happen. And I will give person an ID, integer ID, right? So by default, this integer ID is private. So therefore, in order to be able to populate this I need to add a constructor to class person, but class person is already abstract. We know it from the fact that we couldn't even construct it, right? So there I will provide a constructor, right? Person constructor, which will take an integer ID, something like this, right? So I can basically then initialize this ID. Let me make a distinction between this constructor parameter. I will name it MID, so the member of my class m_id. So over here, when I print it, I will be printing it as MID. But for the derived class to be able to access private members of the person class, perhaps this needs to be protected, right? So we're just going to declare this MID protected member of the person class, right? So now I can initialize it. I can say MID, member ID is getting initialized with an ID, and I'm using constructor initializer list syntax for that, right? So this is all my constructor does. And then, of course, in order to be able to construct this, right? So this time, if I say, okay, let me construct let me construct an employee instead of the person, right? So I can say employee over here, and I will even attempt to provide an identifier such as 1, 2, 3. Right? So if I try building this, this time it says error, no matching function to call employee int. So because employee does not have a constructor, remember we just mentioned that constructors are not inherited. So therefore I need to provide my own constructor inside the employee. Employee has to have, so I will actually copy and paste this because it should be very, very similar, right? So employee, and so it needs the constructor that takes employee ID, which of course it has to pass on to the person. So in this case, we just say, oh, person already has a constructor, so just in this initializer list we're going to use a person, invoke person constructor with an ID. Of course, in Java this would look like super class ID, right? So in Java this is how it would look like. This is the syntax, the way it would look like in Java. In C++, the syntax is this. You have initializer list where you refer to your base class and pass parameters to whatever constructor you want to invoke, right? So there's no super keyword in C++. So we're going to get rid of this. And so hopefully, if we made all these changes, and now we also have our main function which attempts to create an employee, hopefully this holds and we can build this, right? So we just build that. Undefined reference to v table for person. Oh, we still haven't provided the, or have we? Virtual. Let me fix this 1 second.